Hobby Quick Hits, delivering that breaking hobby news directly to your earlobes. You want to know those hot drops from the card shop? We've got you covered. With your host, John Newman.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 210 of Hobby Quick Hits. My name is John Newman. Today's topic, setting up at the National and trade night. I know the trade nights are a huge success. Most people love them, but how about dealers? And as a dealer, now, obviously, as you probably know, I don't set up at the National. But as a dealer, if I did, what would my feelings towards trade night be? And I did speak to some, and, I'm not going to mention names. I told them I wouldn't mention names. They told me they'd give me their opinion if I didn't mention names. And, the reason for that is obviously they don't want to be negative, and if they said something negative, maybe the National doesn't let them get their table space back. So, I agreed to keep their identities unknown so I could get their honest opinion. And to the 6 to 8 dealers I spoke to that I know, it was kind of split down the middle. And then I'll kind of interject my thoughts as well. We're going to get to the hobby release schedule. We're not going to do a news segment on this episode to keep this episode pretty short and sweet. It shouldn't be a long one. So let's get to the hobby product release schedule, and then we'll tackle this topic. All right, let's talk about the releases coming out in the next few weeks. On the 20th of August, Foundation Seasons 1 and 2 from Rittenhouse. Same day, 2025, Leaf Glory of the Game Football. 2025, Panini Boys of Summer Baseball. 20th still, The Boys Season 1 and 2. Star Wars Topps Chrome, including the Breaker's Delight edition. The following day, 8/21, we have 2024 Panini Immaculate Football. 2025 Leaf Eclectic Pro Bowling Association Hobby and Jumbos. On the 22nd, 2025, Panini Prism Live Golf. 2025 Leaf Major League Table Tennis Premier Edition. Leaf Metal 2025 Authentics. Pokemon 2025 Holiday Calendar. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Black Bolt Booster Bundle. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet White Flare Booster Bundle. Take a few days off and move to the 27th. 2025 Panini Origins Football. 2025 Panini Prism FIFA Club World Cup Soccer. 2025 Panini Select Racing. Same day on the 27th, 2025 Pulse Meridian Baseball, including the Heat Seekers edition. 2025 Topps Chrome Baseball Sapphire. Also on the 27th, 2024-25 Upper Deck Clear Cut Hockey. James Bond 007 No Time to Die from Upper Deck. Going to the 28th, 2025 Pieces of the Past 1776. The Freedom Fighters Veterans Edition. The 29th, 2025 Leaf Optichrome Football Hobby and Jumbos. Skybox Metal Universe Batman from Upper Deck. 2024-25 Panini Donruss Optic Choice Basketball. 2025 Panini Impeccable Baseball. 2024-25 Panini Silhouette Baseball. 2024-25 Topps or 2025 Topps Chrome WWE Cactus Jack Edition. Topps 24 Garbage Pail Kids Battle of the Bands Green Day. And we'll cover the September 4th 2024 Panini 1 football. As I always say, choose your product, Happy ripping.
Hi, this is Pat Hughes, Cubs announcer, coming to you from the Sports Card Shop in beautiful New Buffalo, Michigan. The Gocher family has built an incredible place here for collectors to buy, sell, and trade cards and memorabilia. Be sure to stop by and let them show you around. TheSportsCardShop.com, connecting sports, athletes, the hobby, and collectors around the world.
Hi. This is Alan Pinkett, and I'm here to tell you the Gocher family has done it again. They've just opened up the Sport Card Shop in downtown Valparaiso, Indiana, and it is awesome. If you're a collector, you need to check this place out. Tell them Alan sent you and get a free gift on your first visit.
And now, our feature presentation.
Before we delve into this topic, let me do some house cleaning and put some stuff out front here. I'm generally not a trade night guy. Although I will tell you, at this year's National, I did go to the vintage trade night for a little bit before I had a dinner to attend, and then there was another night I did briefly attend the trade night. But generally, they are not my bag, especially when they occur after a show has already taken place. Here's why, just so you don't think I'm just a curmudgeon or a grumpy Gus, although that may not be untrue, but I kid. You spend 6 to 8 hours in the show, whether that's behind the table as a dealer, or even as a consumer in front of the table walking the floor. For me, and I'm passionate about the hobby. I love the hobby. I love collecting cards. I love selling cards. I love all the aspects of the hobby. But after 6, 8, 10 hours of cards, folks, I'm sort of done. I'm looking for, especially when we talk about the National, I'm sort of looking forward to the dinners and gets-togethers. And while we may talk about cards or things we picked up during the day, it's in a different kind of setting, right? Usually a restaurant or a bar, a little more relaxing. We can kind of chill out, sit down, share a meal, share some drinks, talk about not only cards but life as well, and that sort of thing, right? So that is, sort of my take on trade nights. I'm not anti-trade night. It's just not my thing. But when you attend the National for the whole week, you talk to a lot of people on all aspects of the hobby: dealers, collectors, people just selling their cards from table to table, the whole gamut. And, I spoke to, 6 to 8 friends of mine that told me, combined, by adding up what they told me, they spent cash, not in the show, but in trade night. So I have eight people I know who, when they told me what they spent, not on the show floor itself, but after the show was closed in trade nights, and just the 8 people I spoke to, it was over $50,000 combined. And that's a decent amount of cash, right? And obviously there's probably millions going down in the show itself. And so, keep that in perspective. But I really thought about it, right? And that's just, 8 people I spoke to. That means there's more transactions than that, people I don't know and didn't speak to, right? And there's probably millions of dollars exchanging hands on the trade night floor as well after the show. And it got me to thinking. I've never set up at a National. I'm a dealer who sets up at other shows. What's my feelings about that? And I'm not greedy, but I'm entrepreneurial, right? And I'm thinking to myself, these trade nights, right? Everyone's just throwing their cards out on a round table. They're on the floor, sitting Indian style with all their prized possessions or available cards placed in front of them. And some are trade deals where there's no cash involved, and other times it's just a buy and sell, right? It's a lot of different transactions going on. And as a dealer, knowing that, now as a dealer, could I still attend a trade night myself and bring some of my stuff to trade night? Sure. So the opportunity is there for that. But I thought, man, what if I'm a dealer and I don't set up at trade night? And all this other money is exchanging hands. And the folks that are at the trade night, they're not paying any kind of table expense. Sure, they're paying the expense to get to, in this case, Chicago and their hotels if they're staying at a hotel, and their travel expenses and their lodging and food and Uber and everything that's entailed. But they're not paying the setup fees to set up inside the National itself. And obviously more people are attending the National, the show itself, than the trade nights. But I tell you the truth, I can't drive to Chicago, but if I did, I think I've changed my. I think the next National I drive to, whatever that might be, I might bring some stuff and just set up a table at a trade night and make some money without paying that National, card show fee, the table fee, right? And the last I knew, and I don't know what the current regime is, I think it was like something like, and I could be low here, between 1,200 and 1,800 for a table at the National. I believe 8 feet. That could be wrong. If you don't bring your showcases, right, you have to rent your showcases. I believe those are $75 a case. Again, these are approximate estimates based on either information I've had prior or talking the people, right? So it's 4 figures for sure, right? And that number, again, might be higher than I'm even saying. And so if I can just set up shop at a trade night and make thousands of dollars without paying thousands of dollars, like, I don't blame the people at trade night. It's not their fault. They're just taking advantage of the opportunity presented to them. It's smart. It's smart on their part. But if I'm a dealer at the show, that kind of bothers me a little bit, because you can hate me for saying this, but here I'm paying to set up, the privilege and honor to set up and sell my cards and items, and then someone at after hours can set up in pretty much the same building in a different room and sell their stuff with no overhead like I have. They don't even need showcases, right? They're putting these cards right out on the table. Some people might have brought their own cases, but generally the higher percentages, they're just putting the cards on the table. Now, obviously, they're at greater risk for something to be taken or stolen and that sort of thing. But it's a great opportunity, those folks, and they're taking advantage of it, right, to make some cash. And is that cash going back into the hobby? Most likely. And quite frankly, that's none of my business whether it does or it doesn't. But if I'm a dealer, that sort of would bother me because, right, everyone has a budget of some sort. Some are higher than others. Your budget might be under $1,000. Your budget might be between 1 and 10,000, like mine is. Your budget might be 10,000 to 20,000. Your budget might be 6 figures if you're, financially in a really, really good spot. So everyone's budget's different, but everyone has a budget, a cap of some point that they really can't go past. And when those monies are exchanging hands on a trade night floor, that budget most likely goes down for many. May go up for some that are making the sales, but that's money that could have been spent during show hours. And so as a dealer, is it a deal breaker for me? Would I not set up at the National if I was setting up at the National? No, and I don't think, and the dealers I spoke to, in full disclosure, no one, even the ones that sort of didn't like the premise of trade night, none of them said that it would be a reason they wouldn't set up at the National again. They may not like it, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't set up at the National again. And a good percentage of the ones I spoke to were not first-time vendors. These are people who've been there multiple times or there every year. And so for me, speaking for myself as someone who's a dealer, but not a National dealer, it would kind of bug me a little bit that, we're sort of paying our dues during the day, and at night it's sort of, the Wild Wild West and free enterprise. And like I said, I've even thought about, like, if the next National I can drive to and bring more stuff with me, I might just put my stuff out there and generate, hopefully, some cash flow and spend more money at the National. And yes, there is a positive too, right? It's not all negative side, right? If you make some money on trade night, again, like I said already, you're probably apt to spend more on the show floor the following days for more cards. But, not all that money goes back onto the show floor. And so dealers are sort of losing out probably a small piece of that pie, but it is a piece of that pie. So again, I spoke to some dealers that I know, got their honest assessment and takes, promised I would not disclose their names or business names, and I'm not going to. And even the ones that said positive stuff, that didn't say like you can share my name. I'm not going to, just to be fair across the board. So some of the positive comments from dealers who set up in the National, their take was, hey, maybe it brings more people to the National. If there weren't trade nights, maybe some people wouldn't come in to the show at all. Now, I don't know how true or what percentage that would be, but I'm sure there is some truth to that. Another gentleman told me like the trade nights don't really bother him because he does fairly well and he doesn't think it really affects him too much. Another gentleman told me that he thinks trade nights are good. It just keeps the transactions going. It keeps people in a great mood, and he thinks he's a vintage dealer, and he thinks two things. He thinks that a lot of the trade night stuff is on modern and ultra modern, so it really doesn't affect him too much directly, as he doesn't carry that stuff. And he thinks even when there is vintage at a trade night, it does expose some of those, the younger set, if you will, is how he worded it, maybe to consider adding vintage to what they collect and transact in. So those were sort of the positive comments. Another person told me, they can't control it, they don't worry about it. I get that stance as well. Some of the negative, and it was probably 60-40 positive, but some of the negative comments were kind of how I feel, right? Is like, in a sense, folks are getting sort of a free table space to make some money where they're paying for their table space. One person told me they'd like to see it a little bit more organized, where you have to pay, maybe not obviously what you pay to set up at the National itself, but a small fee to set up. One gentleman even said, they should pay for a table, and even if the National doesn't, it sponsors it but doesn't keep the money, use that money and give it to the charities that they work with, right? So let's say you wanted to sell or trade at the trade night, it'd be $50 for a table, and that $50 would go to, whatever charity of choice the National designates, or various charities of choice for the National. I kind of like that idea. So they sort of pay a little bit of the freight, and people, some people who could use the funds would benefit from those table fee, whether it's $50, $100. That's for the powers to be to determine the cost to set up at the trade night. Maybe even charge admission, right? So if you go to a trade night, but you're not getting a table, you're just walking around with your shoebox or Zion case, maybe a couple bucks to get in, or $5 to get in. Again, that money could go to charity, right? That sort of thing. So I kind of like that. Another dealer was a little more strong about it. He just thinks it's sort of, he told me he thinks it's very unfair. It's not going to cause him, it's not going to stop him from setting up, but he just thinks it's not, it's not ideal, and he thinks that it does affect maybe how much money's in the room. Even though that number is huge, no matter what it is, he thinks there's some money getting sucked out of the room, and he's not excited about that. Again, he said it's not a deal breaker for him, but he says if he's being honest, which I asked him to be, that was his take. And so I get it. Trade night is great promotion for the hobby. It keeps the show going. It keeps people there. I thought about it. You're hearing some of these impromptu trade nights in the hotel lobbies, right? People up to 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I can't do this. I can't do that at my age now. God bless you if you can. But man, those are just long days and that sort of thing. But again, to each their own. It's not going to stop me from attending the National. I may not go to every trade night. I may pop in and then pop out. It's just not my scene, if you will. But they're not going away, right? We can talk about it on this episode, the pros, the cons, but at the end of the day, they're not going away, and if anything, we're going to see more of them, and they're going to get bigger and better. Like the one dealer I spoke to, I like to see a little more organization with it. Maybe to raise some money for good causes at the same time as promoting the hobby. So I'm not opposed to that. I thought that was a great idea proposed by that person that I spoke to. And like I said, the next national I go to where I get to drive to, I'm probably going to bring a case of cards and maybe, take advantage of the situation, if you will, for the sheer fact of just adding to my coffers for money I could spend and cards I can buy on the subsequent days after these trade nights if I sell some of my wares. So what say you, whether you're a dealer or just a consumer or someone that goes to trade night, sets up a trade night, trades, buys and sells? What are your thoughts? Do you think maybe having it more organized and collecting small fees that go to charity is something you wouldn't mind? Let me know, good, bad, or indifferent. Let me know your thoughts. Dealer, not dealer, doesn't matter. Everybody's opinion counts. All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of Hobby Quick Hits. Want to give out our social media, starting with our website, which is www.sportscardnationpodcast.com. Facebook, you can follow us at www.facebook.com/sportscardnationpodcast/ Twitter, we are at SportsCardNati1, so it's SportsCard NATI1. Instagram at SportsCardNationPodcast, or you can email the show hobbyquickhits@gmail.com. Again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.